So I've been using Canva for, gosh, probably 8 or 9 years now. And in this video, I want to show you 10 steps to go from beginner to power user, a full tutorial on how to use one of the most powerful free softwares on the internet. This is kind of halfway between just using Gemini or ChatGPT to make the stuff for you, which is not really that customizable, and Photoshop, which is very customizable, but also a lot harder to use. This is something that everybody can use. It's not hard to do, and it's incredibly powerful. So you can get custom designs for presentations or posters or signs or whatever you want. There's tons of things. As you can see right here on the screen, tons and tons of things you can do with Canva. And so before we get into the first step, the first kind of tip I have, I want to start off by just going over the layout of Canva. So once you go to canva.com and you make your account, it'll bring you to your homepage. It looks kind of like this. So on the left side, we can click create, and that is essentially everything you could build from scratch. There's a lot of options and some custom sizes, but we'll get into that a little bit later. You have home, which is, as you can see right here, all of your recent projects, and I'll talk about those in just one second. But continuing down the left side, projects are anything you've worked on recently. Templates, again, you can either choose new ones or your own designs. You've got your brand here, and I'll show you how to set up the brand. I think that's a really powerful tool to have your own colors, logo, and everything ready to go so you can make consistent designs without always having to find the exact color. But let's go back to home now. So from home, you can see we have your designs, you have templates, and you have Canva AI. So your designs, great way to pick up on anything you left off. Templates, great way to find essentially any design that you want to make, but you want to start with some ideas or some kind of layout that somebody else made. And so I think it's time we can get started with that. So let's say I want to make a honey for sale, maybe a little flyer, a little sign or something like that, honey for sale, and hit enter, and you'll see we have a lot down here. Now you can choose the category. So you could say, maybe I'm looking for a flyer, maybe I'm looking for a Facebook post, and you can choose the style as well. Do you want this to look more organic, more minimal, more simple or playful? And that'll kind of help you to filter through this. But I usually just like scrolling down and taking a look at what we have. I think this style honestly always gets me. I love that kind of monochromatic look. So I'm going to go with this one right here. Once you like one, you can click on it. It'll show you just some mock-ups. Now, Canva is free to use, of course, and I should have mentioned this earlier. I'm not sponsored by Canva. I have no kickbacks on this. I'm just showing you how to use Canva. One thing about Canva, though, even though there's a paid and a free version, no matter which one you have, they do always like to kind of push their Canva print service, which you absolutely don't need to use, but I mean, if you wanted to, like, it does exist. That's why they show this stuff and they want you to choose this. Don't worry about the price or anything like that. We can just customize this template. So let's say customize the template, and that brings us into our design editor. Now, I'm going to close out of this on the right side because, like I said, I'm not using this to print anything. I'm not printing with Canva, and you can easily download this by clicking share, clicking download, and you can print it anywhere you want with any printer you want. You're not limited to Canva's printer. So within design elements, this is a drag and drop editor, which is generally very intuitive. So you can click, when you hover over anything, you can just click and drag it and move it anywhere you want. And you'll see these little magenta lines show up that allow you to kind of snap to, like, that one is the center. I could align it to the left of like this text down here, and just different ways that you can align this based on those magenta lines. I'll put this where it was, which I think was probably right about there. And if you ever want to undo something, you can click on undo on the top. So I was close, but not quite where I wanted to be. If you want to edit what something says, you just double click on it and I can type anything I want in there. And if we want to change the design or the appearance of this text, for example, you can just click on it, and across the top we have the font size, the color. And when we click on color, something that I really like that Canva does is they have document color. So it identifies the colors that are being used in this file. And so it can see like this exact yellow down here, kind of the yellow in the background. And so it allows you to kind of choose them based on the colors that already exist, so you don't have slightly different shades of brown, for example. We also have my brand colors down here, and like I said, that's really important. We'll get to that later. But if you wanted to, you can find gradients down here, colors, or you could add your own color by clicking add new color, and you could either paste the HTML color code. If you don't know what your color code is for, say, your logo, I recommend going to a new tab, go to HTML color code identifier, just look that up on Google, and you can select any one of these. Basically, you'll upload an image, you'll click anywhere on the photo and then copy that, and you have your color code. You can also click on this little dropper right here and go anywhere on the entire screen. So if I just really like Canva's purple, I could click on that, and you'll also notice it adds it as one of Canva's or one of the document colors. I don't hate that color, but let's go back to the brown that we had. So besides text, we also have images. So you can see the images down here, and we can change the background as well. If you click on this, you can just select a different background color as you saw. And if you want to add anything else to your document or your design, on the left side, if we click on design, that's going to show you more starter templates. We don't need that. You have elements then, and this is probably where you spend the bulk of your time on Canva. There's a ton of things. You can search for them, and the search is getting pretty good, to be honest. You can generate images, and you can go down by categories, and there are so many different styles here. You can find things that are actually like full images and photos that are kind of stock photos you can use. You can find graphics. You can find like this little thing in the background, just like a honeycomb shape. There's so many options. So I recommend spending a good amount of time just kind of browsing through that. And something that is very interesting, moving into number 2 on this list, kind of next step up in becoming kind of a power user here, is frames. So when you're working with a design, if you want to put, let's say we're going to select these frames, there are a lot of different ones you could choose from. So maybe a phone, for example, I can just click and drag this over. We'll drop it right there, and you'll see, like, I don't really want that little cloud and like whatever in the background. That's actually just a placeholder. You don't need to worry about that at all. So if you click on this and then we go back over to elements, we can drag any, so let's go back to frames. We can drag over any photo we want. So I'll show you how to upload photos in a second, but let's say one of these photos that you really like, I'm going to search for one that is honeybee. I don't know, just say honeybee, see what we have. All right, so we've got like a honeybee on some flowers. We can choose the orientation. I want vertical because that's a vertical phone there. And maybe this is good. So all you do is click and drag this photo over and just hover over that little placeholder photo. And now you have this on top of a phone. So that's one of the many ways you can use frames. It's a very powerful tool, and it's really cool that Canva does offer that. Now, because I don't really need this in the design, I'm going to click delete, a little trash can button, and you can either delete the image or the frame, which is nice, but I'm just going to delete the frame. I don't actually need that frame here. So continuing down the left side, obviously I mentioned we have a lot of options here. Forms is really powerful as well, but let's go down to text. You obviously have a ton of kind of pre-designed text, which is really cool that you can work with these. But let's say I want to add just a basic heading. I can click on heading, drag it over, and drop it right there. Now, obviously I showed you how to change the font and everything, but you can also change the shape and the design of this. So this is kind of tip number 3. When you're working with your text, you could first of all go to advanced settings here, and you can choose your letter spacing to make it slightly wider. You can choose your line spacing, so between different lines, and you can anchor the text to the top, the middle, or the bottom. And there's more settings as well on the left side if you wanted to change any of those. But what I really like doing is actually going to effects, and from here you can choose if you want to have a different background and an outline kind of offset like that. That's kind of a cool look. You can have outline here, and you can choose, as you can see, the colors on all of these. So like this is kind of a gray. If I change the font color here to brown, and then I go back to effects, I can change this to maybe like this kind of yellowish color. Maybe that would look better. That kind of matches the style a little bit better. Below that, we also have the ability to change the curve of it. So if you want this to kind of curve down, you can choose what the radius is going to be. So maybe it's going to be just kind of curved a little bit like that. And it just gives you a really unique style that otherwise would be difficult to create something that looks just like that. So that's some more advanced text editing. And again, I think that really does a lot to make it look a lot more custom and less like just a Word document that you're creating here. You'll also notice that on this one, we have that little red outline there. That's not actually on the final product. That is only showing because I'm getting close to what they're calling the danger zone, essentially the margins of what might not print very well based on the size that we selected. Moving on to number 4, let's talk about resizing this. I talked about the size of this might not be what you want. So this is a poster. If I click on resize, and unfortunately, this is the first thing that is not free to use. You have to upgrade for this. So I'm going to show you the feature, and obviously don't upgrade if you don't need it. But if you go to resize, we can choose if we want to change this thing to maybe the size of an Instagram post. Maybe you want to just change the aspect ratio. You can do a lot in terms of changing this. So also you can translate it. I didn't even know that existed. That's new to me. I've never needed to do that. But let's go to see all and say maybe we want this to be a presentation, landscape format. Very, very different than this. I can copy and resize, or I could just resize this design. So let's say copy and resize, and it'll have a new design that might move things around a little bit. So open that one, and you can see it did a pretty good job of copying all the elements over and stretching it in what probably is the best way it could have done that. So you're able to resize. That's like an extreme example that you'll probably never really use to totally change the aspect ratio, but this could mostly be useful if you have like a small image and you're like, I really need this to be a higher resolution. You can change that to a much larger one with the same aspect ratio. And while we're on the topic of making, new designs and new presentations, I guess, what are we on? Number 5 now is actually adding new pages here. So everyone edits their main design here. And I think it's often overlooked that on the bottom, you can add new pages. So I can add different designs on the bottom if you wanted to, or just add a new page. So if I add a new page, it'll basically copy the background and the aspect ratio of the first one. And it's a good way to kind of reiterate on your design. So if I make one design, I'm like, what does it look like if I have a different font or a different color or whatever? You can do that. And the best way to do it is not even by doing this, but rather by duplicating it. So this little duplicate button right here, if I click on that, it duplicates that. And now I can select this and say, what if it's like maybe instead I want a slightly different font. Maybe I want that font right there. So just a different look. I kind of like how that looks, to be honest. Like I said, I just love the monochrome designs here where it's like this kind of brown, yellow, and yellow. Anyway, I'm getting off topic, but yeah, so that's what you can do. You can add new pages down here, extremely powerful. And another aspect of the design that I forgot to mention before is when you click on any individual element, not only do you have the editing up here, so you can crop it, you can flip it. So let's do like a horizontal flip, totally possible. You can make it slightly more transparent. So if you wanted to blend in with the background and have something on top of it, maybe we have it like this and it's just like, in the background of the whole thing. That's something you could do. And you can also lock it in place. So I know I talked about these a little bit earlier, the settings up there, but I didn't talk about these down here. So you're able to lock it in place so that if you're editing everything else, moving it around, you won't be able to move this around anymore because, you locked it in place. To unlock it, you just click on the little lock button and now you're ready to go. You can delete it by clicking the trash can. And the Ask Canva thing is sort of like, it's an AI chatbot in here. Again, I don't use the AI all that much, but it can be kind of helpful. If you click on it, you can ask Canva for suggestions. You can change the style of it. So let's say change style, make the honey purple. It just takes a little while to do this, and it does treat it as a comment. So I guess that moves into number 6 on this list. I don't know if I'm counting that right, but I think we're at number 6 is managing comments. So you're able to share, collaborate, and comment on Canva projects. So this project right here, I'm working on it solo, but if I wanted to invite someone, the little plus on the top allows you to, send this to somebody else's email as long as they have a Canva account there. So you want to make sure you have the right email with their Canva account. You can share with them and you can choose permissions. So are they going to be, allowed to invite other people and stuff like that? And they'll be able to edit this. They'll be able to comment on this. So if I wanted to leave a comment on this heading, I could click on the heading, then click on comment, and then just drop an @ and mention somebody that I want to edit it. I could, add an emoji or whatever, but let's just say change the text, and I could post that comment. Now let's go back here and see if Canva, okay, so Canva did change this. It didn't change it as I would have. So if I select this, I can change all the colors of it. It just had a totally different design that was AI generated. If I click on plus, you'll see it drops it in here. It actually even like cropped it out a little bit strangely. That's why I don't really use it that much. I would rather do the editing myself. Now, talking about the color, if I did want to change this is really cool with Canva as well. A lot of the design elements that you choose on the left side here, so maybe like these grapes or maybe anything else like that, you can change how they look. You don't need to accept them for the color that they already are. So like this one's really good as well. A good example, if you click on it, see how this is all like that brown color? I can just edit this. And again, choose a document color. So it could be our brown that actually matches the font up there. This could also be our brown that matches the font. And if I wanted to, I can click on this and we have a bunch of different colors. You can see 4 across the top here. So anything that's brown, I can change that to the darker brown if I wanted it to be more bold. Anything that's yellow, so the honey in there, I could change it to maybe like a lavender color. Let's see if we can find a lavender color here. Kind of like that. And you'll see it's able to change how that actually looks, which is pretty neat. So let's delete these in the background. We don't need that. And let's go back to our original honey color. Now, I don't need these comments here anymore. If we wanted to get rid of them, you can just click on the check mark and they disappear. They're now resolved comments. But what if we want to put something in the background? So maybe I'm going to find a honeybee graphic, maybe this one right here. Maybe I like this, I want it in the background. I can click and drag it over right there. I can make it larger like this, and I can change the color. You guys remember how to do that. So let's go with maybe this color, fairly similar to the background color, but I don't want it on the top there. How do you move this to the background? Well, as you see, when you click on it, you have this menu pop up. We can click on position, and this allows us to rearrange how this is. The layers can be any order you want. So I could send this to the very back. You can send this to the front. You can move it backward one at a time. As you can see, each layer of text going through. I'm going to put this all the way in the back. I'm not saying I love this design, but it's something that you can do. And we can also rotate this like that. So maybe it's going to be placed somewhere around there. And an easier way to kind of rearrange all the layers, if you're like, all right, I really want this text to be behind that one thing, and maybe you can't even click on it. Like maybe once you have all these other things, it's hard to click on that in the background. What you would do is just click on any one thing, click on position, then click on layers, and all of your layers show up right here. And you can click and drag them up or down to rearrange things any way you want. So maybe I want the honey pot on the absolute front. Nothing is in front of the honey pot. So the design aspect, I think you guys are really picking up on how this works, but there are a lot of other really neat tools hidden within Canva, kind of in plain sight though. They're just things you don't always notice. So along the bottom, you can resize everything. You can zoom in and out, as you're able to see right there. So if you need to get really close to a design and figure out exactly how to edit that, zoom in as far as you need to. We also have the option to switch between, if you want it, like right now they're all pages you scroll through. Let's zoom back into a more reasonable size. I think we probably had it right about there. So you can also go to pages here, and if you just click on that, it'll show you each one as a thumbnail on the bottom. Then you can always just add new ones like that. Click on it again, and it'll switch back to the scrolling style. So if you have a lot of different styles, you're toggling between like number 1 and number 5, it could be nice to have the thumbnails on the bottom. Also, let's say you have maybe 40 designs. You can go to the grid view and see all of them and easily switch between any one of them just by clicking on them, or double clicking rather, and that'll bring you to that respective page. And I know a lot of people do use Canva for presenting, which is actually a really great use case of this. You can do that by clicking on, obviously there's little hotkeys right there, but if you just click on the little full screen thing, that'll bring you into the presentation mode, and you can just hit left or right buttons on your keyboard to toggle between the different slides. And this is great because honestly, PowerPoint is pretty antiquated. It doesn't really do a great job, in my opinion, of allowing you to design, something more intricate like this. So Canva, pretty great for that. Also on the left side, you can add notes. This could be great if you are presenting. So you have your notes, maybe about the design, or also maybe just notes you need to remember when you're presenting this. And you also have a timer. So if you're trying to practice a presentation, or maybe, as I would probably use this to do, is you could just focus on whatever work you're doing. So if you need to get maybe a 60-minute or a 59-minute focus session, you can just do this, you hit go, and it's just going to count down. So no distractions, no looking at your phone until you're done, until that timer gets to 0. It's actually a method I use a lot with a physical timer, and it's cool that Canva has that in here. You can select music as well, which is kind of cool. Again, just some focus. Let's see. I don't want to get demonetized, but yeah, there you go. Again, just a cool thing you could do if you're trying to focus and just crank out some work with Canva. Click on timer again, and that will hide it down in the bottom, and you can get back to working here. Canva also has, I didn't even get down to the bottom of this left side, the ability obviously to upload your own files. And this is huge. I do this all the time. Any kind of logos I generate, ChatGPT stuff, whatever, I can click and drag this in and drop it anywhere. But actually, let me move this. Let me cut and paste it down here. And something that Canva does well is you're actually able to remove the background of stuff. So if you click on it, again, this is unfortunately a feature that only comes with the Canva Pro option. You can click on BG Remover, it scans it, it removes it, and it actually does a surprisingly good job. You can look at that. That does a good job. We also have tools down on the left side. So if you need to draw something, you can just circle this, and that's a good way to in a presentation, this is really useful. Or also if you're just trying to leave comments for somebody, or in your design, if you just really want something that's hand drawn, maybe that's the way to do it. And you could do this. I'm not great with the mouse. Some people are better. You could also use an iPad or something and add those in a little bit better than this. There are apps down here. So if you wanted to apply some 3D stuff for your fonts, if you wanted to make some different frames. I showed you frames earlier. There's some things you can check out and get a little bit in the weeds on some cool things that are available. And Magic Media, similar to like the designing the elements up there, you can just ask it to, it's generative AI. It's going to make stuff, images, graphics, videos, 3D stuff. You just, enter a little sentence about what you want, and it can make that for you. Now let's talk about the brand aspect. Unfortunately, this is another thing that is actually in the paid plan. So you see a little crown right there. And by the way, anytime you see in the elements, if we go and browse through like, I don't know, graphics, for example, anything with a crown, you do need the premium version of Canva Pro to access it. But there are still a ton of free ones that don't have that little crown that are totally free to use. But with brand here anyway, you can make your brand assets. So let's say create a new brand kit, and I can call this sample brand kit. And this is cool because as you saw earlier, when I showed my colors, it always has my brand colors there. My logo is always available. And it's just an easy way to, if I go to upload logos, it's an easy way to always have that, just on deck whenever you're designing. So it's always available. So we'll say save. We can have the colors, the fonts, the brand voice, photos. Brand voice is more so with like generative stuff, to be honest. You can have graphics, icons, some charts. You can have all of that here. And like I said, it just keeps it a little bit more accessible. So if I go back to elements, click on back. So if we go to brand, we can click on, whatever brand we're working with, and then all the assets, as long as you click on all assets, they're always right here. So you just click and drag that over anytime you need to. That's also kind of a cool feature right there. You're able to swap out images by dragging and dropping onto the images. So let me do that again, show you exactly what I did. So when this is selected, if I just drag and drop this over, it swaps out the image that I had there. Just something to be aware of in case you experience that by accident or in case you need to do that. All right, so I think that was probably way more than 10 things in this video, but I want to show you finally, once you have your design ready and you like it, how do you actually use this? Well, you can go to File and Download up here. So File, Download, or you can actually go to, on the right side, Share, and then from here, you can see a lot of different ways. Go right to Instagram, print, whatever, present. But I just go to download. And when you're downloading here, you have some options, especially, again, if you have Canva, Pro. But you can download as a JPEG, a PNG, like lots of different styles. PDF is a really useful one as well. Lots of different ways you can download these. And you can also have a transparent background. So if I want this background to be transparent, I can just select the background, click delete. There's no longer a background on this. And if I say share, I can go to download. I can select transparent background, and I can choose maybe not all of these. Maybe I just want page 3. I could say done, and I can download that. So that's going to download just this page as a PNG. Another really neat thing that I actually didn't even realize you could do until pretty recently is if you need to just download a couple things together, you can select them all by clicking and dragging a box around them, or you could hold shift and just click all of them. But then what you do is you make them a group by clicking group, which is also useful. You can resize them and move them anywhere as one consistent group. But also you can then right click, you can download selection. And again, you can make this a transparent background as well. Otherwise it's going to be a white background. We can change the size of this, make it a little bit bigger, and I can download this. And by the way, transparent background only works if it's a PNG. It won't work for a JPEG. But if I click this and I open it, you can see it just downloaded. Obviously it looks bad because I just selected a random thing there, but you're able to download this, and I can put this on other designs. I can put it on a t-shirt. I could do whatever, but it's just neat that you can download individual selections without a background. All right, now we're really getting in the weeds here, but if you're presenting with this, another thing you can do is if you select it and you right click on it, you can go to show element timing. And now whenever you're presenting this, you can kind of slide this over and say, all right, I don't want this to pop up until maybe like 2 seconds after this slide starts. So I can go to maybe like right there. And then when I go and present, you'll see it doesn't show up at first, and then it does show up. So again, if you're doing presentations with Canva, it's a very powerful tool. If you wanted to just make a new design, I mean, presentation it's its own thing, obviously, but you can also make emails, you can make spreadsheets, you can make documents, you can make whiteboard is going to be probably the best way to do like a vision board, as you can see right there. I know a lot of people that do that. You can also just present and stuff on whiteboards pretty well. Social media posts, huge one. Tons of people make stories and Facebook posts, Instagram posts on there. I've used this so many times to update my Facebook and my YouTube covers. And you can actually technically make a website on Canva as well. And maybe I'll make a tutorial on that in the future, but I hope you found this video helpful. I'm Michael Bryan with Santrel Media, and that is my tutorial on how I use Canva.